Fireworks on Capitol Hill as Democrats in the House use a moment of silence for the Orlando victims to call attention to gun control legislation. Lawmakers walking out, even shouting at House Speaker Paul Ryan. Watch this.
The chair asks that the House now observe a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the terrorist attack in Orlando.
Well, you can see three lawmakers actually walking out of the chamber. And then you hear shouts from the floor as Speaker Ryan tries to gavel back to business.
Up to amend the High Performance Computing Act of 1991 to authorize activities for support of networking and information.
Really unreal to watch that. Joining me now, Governor Mike Huckabee, former presidential candidate. You know, it was 16 seconds to honor these 49 lives that have been lost, these innocent lives. 5 more are still in grave condition, and they walked out. What do you think?
Heather, it's embarrassing, and I would like to think that these Democrats who are acting as petulant Democrats, although I guess I repeat myself, just a few moments of silence, not for Paul Ryan, not for Republicans, not for any partisan activity, but silence for people who've been murdered by a terrorist. And I don't know why they couldn't have just paused for a moment. There's plenty of time for politics, and I think it's like going to a funeral and standing up and yelling that you didn't like the way the estate was divided. I mean, it's just inappropriate, incredibly inappropriate. There's not a single piece of gun control legislation that would have stopped this. If they were going to stop it, the FBI would have kept their file open on this guy, and he couldn't have bought the gun. It wasn't a fault of what legislation we have. It's not keeping the files open. The FBI has purged all of their language regarding radical Islam because we don't want to offend anybody. And look, here's what we're told. Let's don't blame all the Muslims for one radical terrorist. Okay, fine. Don't blame all the gun owners because one guy who got a gun did something stupid and did something murderous. If he doesn't represent all the Muslims, then neither does he represent all the gun owners. So there's got to be some consistency with these the liberals and the Democrats in Congress who think the answer to everything is let's pass a law. Criminals and terrorists don't obey the laws we have. You can pass 1,000 laws, and if you take their guns away, they're going to use a pipe bomb. They'll use, they'll use some other type of device, a knife. They'll use whatever they can. But that's what's so nonsensical about this. If we want to stop it, then let's call it what it is. Let's go after them. Let's kill them where they are. Let's make ISIS pay every time they raise their head above the sand and take their heads off. That's how we stop this. It's not by putting a penalty on law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, Bill was speaking to Lindsey Graham earlier and referencing what you were talking about right there. He said, you know, if gun legislation worked, if banning guns worked, there would have been no Paris, there would have been no Brussels, there would have been no the Boston bombing that happened.
Heather, let's keep in mind that most of the time these kind of gun crimes happen in gun-free zones, and the most dangerous cities for gun crime are the cities that have the tightest gun control. Chicago, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, New York City. It's not Texas where people pretty much will be armed and protect themselves.
All right, I have to wrap you up.
That's something we got to remember.